The C Nation. John Cena's fan base mostly started off as kids, the ones who wore neon shirts, threw on sweatbands, and waved their hands in front of their faces like they were casting spells. While the internet mocked them and their older fans booed Cena out of the building, the kids didn't care, because to them, he wasn't just a wrestler, he was their superhero and role model. John Cena was always that one guy who told them to never give up, no matter how much the odds were stacked against him. These are the fans who stayed loyal through everything. Through the 5 moves of doom, through the forced main events, through the years when people begged for a heel turn, and even when they grew up and got more critical. Most of them still felt a rush when that music hit and the crowd split right down the middle. The C Nation isn't about being cool or edgy or part of some underground movement. It's about backing someone who carried the company on his back for years. People's fans. The Rock's fans are the kind of people who came for wrestling but stayed for the charisma. Because even though he could wrestle with the best of them, what really made his followers stick around was the way he owned the mic and left grown adults repeating catchphrases with the same enthusiasm they had when they first heard them as kids. These fans didn't need 5-star classics or long-term story arcs to be invested, because for them, The Rock showing up, raising an eyebrow, and roasting someone into dust was already worth the price of admission. And when he left for Hollywood, they followed him there too, not because he was a wrestler turned actor, but because he was The Rock, larger than life, effortlessly cool, and somehow still humble despite all the success. Boss Club. Sasha Banks fans are some of the most dedicated in WWE, mostly made up of passionate online followers, younger women, and longtime NXT viewers who connected with her during her rise in 2015. She became a standout in NXT with classic matches against Bayley, including their 30-minute Iron Woman match at TakeOver. Respect, the first women's main event in NXT history. Her fans followed her to the main roster, where despite 5 Raw Women's Championship reigns, she never held a title for more than a month until years later. That start-stop booking frustrated her base, especially as she continued to deliver standout performances like her Hell in a Cell match with Charlotte in 2016, or her WrestleMania 37 main event with Bianca Belair, the first Mania main event between 2 black women. In 2022, she and Naomi walked out of WWE over creative issues, and many fans defended the move, seeing it as standing up for themselves. Whether she's wrestling or not, her fan base is deeply loyal because they see her as a generational talent who constantly fought for more than what the company initially gave her. Viper's Pack. Randy Orton's fans aren't the loudest in the room, and they're not usually the ones waving signs or shouting catchphrases, but they are definitely the most understanding. Most of these fans fell in love with him during his heel turn, and many even say he's the greatest WWE villain of all time. These are the fans who were there during the Legend Killer days when he was punting Hall of Famers and disrespecting veterans. They also stood by him during the Evolution years, when he was cocky and ruthless, and going toe-to-toe against some of the best in the business. Orton's followers don't need him to be flashy or heroic. They love that cold, emotionless presence, the kind of wrestler who can walk into any match, do just enough to dominate, and walk out without breaking a sweat. Yes Movement. Daniel Bryan fans are the purest kind of wrestling fans, the ones who care less about size or corporate polish and more about heart. They're the ones who feel that someone deserves a shot even when the system keeps pushing them to the side. This is why the Yes Movement didn't just feel like a chant, it felt like a protest that somehow made it all the way to the main event of WrestleMania. These fans watched Bryan fight through tiny venues, through bad gimmicks, through injuries and early retirements, and they never once stopped believing that he could be the best. And when he finally got that moment, standing tall with both belts and the entire stadium chanting yes with their arms raised, it wasn't just his victory, it was theirs too. The Authority. Triple H fans have had one of the most interesting journeys in wrestling fandom because they followed a guy who went from snobby aristocrat to degenerate rebel to sledgehammer-wielding villain to company executive. At every step they stuck around, not because he was the most athletic or the flashiest, but because he made everything feel important. His fans watched him evolve in real time, from the guy always lurking just behind Shawn Michaels to the man who led DX, dominated Evolution, and took over entire eras of Raw just by being smarter, tougher, and more prepared than everyone else in the room. They don't care about backstage rumors or how many people he supposedly buried. What they respect is how consistent he was and how committed he stayed to every version of his character. Now that he's stepped back from the ring and into the role of creative leader, those same fans still cheer for him because he's leading the company in the right direction. Beast Incarnate fans. Brock Lesnar fans are usually misunderstood by the rest of the wrestling world. While everyone else is complaining that he doesn't show up enough or doesn't cut long promos, his fan base couldn't care less, because they're not here for weekly TV filler. They're here for destruction, for that pure adrenaline rush that comes when Brock storms down the ramp, throws people across the ring like rag dolls, and walks out without even breaking a sweat. These fans don't need 15-minute matches filled with counters and reversals. Give them 4 minutes, 10 suplexes, and an F5, and they'll call it a classic. They were there when he debuted and destroyed The Rock. They were there when he ended Undertaker's streak. And they were definitely there when he smashed Cena like it was a training dummy. Lesnar fans love the aura, the dominance, the unpredictability, because you never really know what he's going to do. And when he actually decides to crack a smile or carry the money in the bank like a boombox, it just adds to the chaos they live for. Tribal followers. Roman Reigns fans have had to fight off criticism for years because supporting him wasn't always the popular thing to do. After debuting in 2012 with The Shield, Roman quickly became WWE's chosen one, winning the 2015 Royal Rumble and headlining multiple WrestleManias. But many fans felt it was too much too fast, and the boos were loud. He was seen as the next John Cena, a top guy pushed regardless of crowd reaction. That earned him a lot of hate, especially from hardcore adult fans. But younger viewers and loyal Shield fans stuck with him. In 2018, he announced he had leukemia and stepped away, which shifted public perception. But when he returned and turned heel in 2020 as the Tribal Chief, everything changed. Now aligned with Paul Heyman and leading the Bloodline, Roman held the Universal Championship for over 1,300 days, becoming the longest reigning champion of the modern era. His fan base today is a mix of longtime believers and new admirers who finally see the full potential realized. Whether loved or hated, Roman Reigns is now the standard, and his fans always knew it. KO's crew. Kevin Owens fans are the kind of wrestling fans who like their heroes flawed, gritty, and brutally honest. Because from the moment he stepped into NXT and powerbombed Sami Zayn onto the apron, they knew this guy wasn't going to play by the rules. These fans relate to him not because he looks like a model or cuts perfectly polished promos, but because he looks like someone who cares, and someone who fights with his whole chest. KO's fans saw the guy who came in with indie credibility and still managed to connect with a mainstream audience without changing who he was, and they've stuck with him through everything. The Universal title run, the feuds with Shane McMahon, the stunners, the betrayals, and the constant reinvention. What makes his fan base so passionate is that they see a bit of themselves in him. Not just the underdog, but the guy who does the work, takes the hits, and still shows up the next day to fight. DX Army. Fans of D-Generation X fell in love with wrestling because it felt dangerous, wild, and like something they probably shouldn't have been watching, which is exactly why they couldn't get enough of it. These fans remember the crotch chops, the suck it chants, the backstage pranks, and the way DX could take over an entire episode of Raw just by storming the ring in camo and cracking jokes that would get you suspended in any other workplace. They weren't just a faction, they were a rebellion, the kind that made young fans feel like they were in on the joke, like they were part of something bigger than just wins and losses. Whether it was the original group with Shawn Michaels and Triple H wrecking havoc, or the later run with Road Dogg, Billy Gunn, X-Pac, and Chyna, the fans stuck with them because they represented freedom. And even when they returned later with goofy glow sticks and poop jokes, their fans didn't care, because they were cheering for their idols that made them fall in love with WWE. Hitman Circle. Bret Hart fans are a very specific kind of wrestling fans. They're the ones who take the craft seriously, who care about the details, the psychology, the way each match is built like a piece of art, instead of just a collection of moves. To them, Bret was the blueprint of how pro wrestling should be done. They stood by him when he wasn't the loudest or most charismatic guy on the mic, because they weren't cheering for noise, they were cheering for credibility. And when Bret got screwed in Montreal, they got insanely mad for him, and even boycotted many WWE events for the years to come. For the fans, Bret wasn't just a wrestler, he was a superhero. Even now, years after his prime, they still bring signs, wear pink and black, and argue online that Bret Hart was the best there is, was, and ever will be.